Prior to this flower lesson that we do, we talk about how we can change the value with watercolors, and instead of adding white and black to the paint, we actually just either add more paint or more water to change the lightness or darkness of the watercolors. So we used the rule of thirds, and I had my students draw their flower off center slightly because we are going to be inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe's flowers. I had them draw at least one petal going off the page, but I still wanted them to leave space for a background. When you first start painting this, the darkest value I think is always the hardest to do because you want to use the least amount of water. So I have a paper towel right next to me and I constantly go back and either squeeze off my brush or I just use a paper towel to tap it in and just wipe away any extra water that I have. Since the flower has less light towards the middle of the petals, that's where I start with a really dark value. I try to get it as dark as possible, and I make a little letter V shape like this, and then I fill it in with jagged lines. You want to make sure you never just draw a straight line and start painting it because then it's going to make it look unnatural. I like to do one petal at a time. You can even try to do, 1 to 3, but you want to make sure you don't let that dark value dry completely, because then you're going to actually go back and use a wet brush to kind of blend it in. Now I'm going to clean off my brush completely. You want nothing left on there. You want a little bit of water, but not too much. And right where the dark value meets the white watercolor paper, I'm going to start using really tiny, careful little circular motions to kind of blend it in, but I'm not going to blend it all the way to the tip of the petal. Again, you can leave this part jagged. It doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line because that's not how nature works. Then clean off your brush completely again, and right where that medium value meets the white watercolor paper, rinse it again, do those circular motions until the whole petal is filled up. Then move on to the next one. Clean off your brush completely, blend it in, clean it off again, smooth it to the edge. When you get to the second layer of petals, it gets a little bit more tricky. You still want to use the least amount of water you can possibly use. And then I'm going to do the same kind of letter V shape, except the smaller petals are kind of in my way. So they're obscuring my little V shape that I use, but I'm still going to bring up the dark value up to the sides a little bit. And I'm still going to make kind of a jagged, uneven kind of filler of the dark value, and that way it'll blend really naturally when I go to add the water to it to make the medium value. And for the last part of the project, I have my students just use a complementary color for the background.